Loading complete.
Watching or listening to the reset button. This is going to be the episode for 5/23/17. That's May for you people who don't know how to use a calendar. I'm so sorry for you. I am Patrick. This is Eric, and he's gushing about Final Fantasy uncontrollably.
Nothing new.
Nothing new. So what's the biggest part that you're really hoping? Well, you already know what's coming. What's the biggest thing that's got you excited the most?
Well, we're going to an entire new continent, which I know doesn't sound as exciting for an MMO because WoW does that a lot, but every single bit of this game for however many years it's been has always taken place on Eorzea. So a whole new continent means an infinite thing of possibilities.
Right.
I'm also, I'd say that's number one because it's the one thing. I really don't know what it's going to be. We've seen one area of it, which is Doma, which is based off of Japan and Eastern, but there's still a whole other part of that continent and world that we have no idea what it's going to be, and including underwater sections and stuff. It's just there's a lot of changes that are coming, and I'm very, very excited.
So I know you've got mounts in the game. Here's one thing I'm wondering, because WoW did this quite a few expansions back, and really didn't do much. Are there any water-related mounts in the game?
There will be, but there's never been. This is the first time you can now dive into the water. They've just let that happen.
Okay.
So we don't know a lot. One thing that was interesting today was announced. They're doing something unique with mounts that WoW has never done. Originally, mounts were all one speed when you're walking on the ground, and then you'd be faster when you're flying, right? That makes sense. But then there was no point of the ground mounts. So now they've said, here's our crazy idea. We'll even have races that you can make with your friends by doing this. The ground mounts are going to move a lot faster than the flying mounts. However, because of the way shortcuts work in flight, you can just fly over everything and have a straight shot. You would have to move by the terrain. But you'll have a huge speed boost with the ground mounts, making them have a use, which I think is a really interesting way to handle that.
I do like that idea. I like it a lot, and I'll tell you why World of Warcraft should absolutely do that. Because the past two expansions, they have done nothing but piss people off by locking off the ability to use a flying mount. Because the flying mount's faster than the ground, and once you get a flying mount, there's no reason to use a ground one anymore. So instead of fixing that problem, Blizzard has been locking it behind a wall that you have to unlock by playing in game, and
there's still a wall. There's still a wall, but it's not upsetting in the way that because 14's structured differently. Generally you're on foot until you have fully explored the area and grabbed so many of the ether currents. You grab those, and then you're able to fly, which has been a fine way to do it because there's only really been one expansion that had flight. But you have to remember, unlike WoW, they are zones in 14. They have their own loading screens. It's giant areas now, but
right,
that was how we did it. But it did kill the use of ground mounts unless you were in a 2.0 area, which still do not have flying, but there's technical reasons for that, and it's fine. But the speed boost is going to come even to those older areas, so we're going to be able to traverse it a lot quicker. But yeah, it's just originally we looked at the ground mounts as kind of worthless because even the flying mounts could be on the ground. So there was objectively no reason why you wouldn't just use the flying mounts.
Right.
So I don't know. It's a small thing. There are a lot of small things announced today, but I know this isn't a news show, so I can't talk too much about this game. I'm just excited.
Well, I didn't even structure it as a news kind of thing. I structured it as let Eric gush kind of thing. Wow. So you see how I structured that?
I'm always gushing about something. Always some video game that I'll never shut up about, and then I move on
to the next video game that you're going to never shut up about, right?
I feel so sorry for Linda because she knows this. My my other half, or the other people. Basically, how my mind works is I get into one thing at a time, but once I do, I look up everything about it, and I get super absorbed in it, and I learn every possibility of everything about the franchise and the series, and then I go to the next thing, and then I got to know all things, and I got to explore everything. So that's how I become like a master of knowledge for so much terribly useless shit in video games. But because 14's an MMO, it's the gift that keeps on giving.
Well, it works out wonderfully for something like this. If only, there was actual payment instead of doing this for free. Hey guys, we have a Patreon.
Yeah.
We have a Patreon. Just go to the website that you see right there, resetpress.net. Then you can click on that, put money into Patreon. Thank you very much. So, that was pretty quick.
That was.
Quick. But oh man, I got way sidetracked on that one. But yeah, you with the gushing is perfectly fine, because that is newsy, but at the same time it creates a good discussion about them taking risks, thinking outside of the box when World of Warcraft could probably do a few things like that.
14 is universally newsy because the news will never stop. But here's the thing, though. I guess this is a topic in of itself that I think is interesting about the two franchises. 14 and WoW are really the only MMOs. I guess Guild Wars 2 could throw it in, but to a lesser extent. But they are definitely the only MMOs that still have like a paid subscription model, right? They're both doing well. Now, WoW has lost many people over the years, but it's still a monumental success. I think that's fair to say. Mm-hmm. What's interesting about the relationship is that even though usually groups tend to play one or the other, both games just make the other game better. Because Yoshi P, the director of Final Fantasy XIV, is a big WoW fan, and he said that when he took the job and fixed it. And so he's always looking at WoW for inspiration for ideas and trying to figure that out. And WoW views 14 as their only real competition in the market of MMO, because nothing else has really sustained or had the power that they did. Because 14 is a big deal. I mean, the WrestleMania this year was entirely themed about Final Fantasy XIV, which is surreal to say, but that happened.
Yeah, that's
14
is crazy.
It is the biggest success that Square has right now. While 15 is probably more talked about because it's the single player game. Yeah. 14 is the most money making game that Square owns right now, and that's why they tripled the budget for Stormblood. But the two have this wonderful, healthy competition where they're looking at each other and trying to one up each other in different departments. I truly believe the reason the last expansion for WoW was so good is because they were trying to beat 14. I think Legion was so good because they came up with all these different ways to say, I see your model with storytelling and single-player campaign. We're going to change our quest system to be more like 14, but with our own flavor to it.
Yeah. And there's a lot that's really good with Legion, especially the quest for getting the legendary weapons. Those are fantastic. And that's actually part of the leveling, not the end game.
It really is, but at the same, I really think that both are making each other better. And I am not a WoW player. I played a little WoW. I missed the boat, and I understand that. But I've always had this monumental respect for WoW, and I love both franchises, and I'm kind of really happy about where both are. But I want you in 14 with me, because I think you would really like 14 the more you get into it.
Yeah, I've already enjoyed what I saw. It's just when you go into a game, like you're saying, with World of Warcraft, I'll flip it on the other side for you. When you get into a game that's been around like that for a while, and there's, specific things that you're going to be doing, specific places you're going to be going, and you don't know what's going on, it's a bit intimidating. I assure you feel the same way when you're playing World of Warcraft.
I do, but my biggest problem with intimidation with WoW specifically was that it was not made for new players. And what I mean by that is that it seems like with WoW, if when I do the old leveling content, when I did the original, which is how I handled it, the quest structure was just not made for that. It was made for a time and place, which was when Cataclysm came out, and then you get to what was the first expansion pack on the tip of my tongue, you know the one.
Oh, Burning Crusade.
Burning Crusade, and then that treats it like Burning Crusade, but it doesn't feel. It feels like it is constantly trying to push me to the newer content, and it doesn't want me to do this older content. And that's why when you buy it, you just get their equivalent of the jump potion right away. They really like have a mini tutorial when you do that, but I always feel like I'm missing out because I just don't have the sequence of events or the history behind it. And this is something I think 14 did well, which is if you go back and you make a new character and you start from scratch, because of the way the main quest system is laid out, you will have the full experience, no matter when you get to it. You're never going to be worried about finding people to play with. You're never going to be worried about, am I going to be able to follow the storyline because some quests are missing from the game, because everything is still there and it was structured from a really good place. I'm not going to pretend that Square Enix always did that, because 1.0 existed, and then they had to save that, jump off that ship, and build a new one. But like
1.0 existed, no one wants to admit it.
We like to call it the Phoenix effect, rise from the ashes. But
yeah, because that thing did crash and burn.
More than any game in history.
Oh man, that was bad. But you got a point. When it comes down to it, those are like the big two. They do grow on top of each other and just continue. One stacks the deck higher and says, look at what I've done. The other side says, that's cool, but look what I could do. And it just keeps going and going, which makes for two great games. Now,
and
if
you
only,
heard each other.
Yeah, they have, I would say, a symbiotic relationship in terms of it. It makes for a healthy market. Now, if the other games would just catch on and figure that part out. James in the chat, hello James, said ESO for life. Hi. No. ESO. We're both laughing because it's worth laughing at. Look, I have ESO on Xbox One.
I do.
What platform do you have it on?
I have it on PS4. It was I got it for free. And here's the thing, though. I gotta put an asterisk with my opinion on ESO.
Okay.
I don't like Bethesda games anymore. Witcher 3 threw me off the bucket. I don't like the design of Bethesda games in general. But I look at ESO and I'm like, other than the online component, it's just a worse Bethesda game.
Okay, well, I'm going to say what I have to say on that one, and I'm going to put an asterisk and say I do like Bethesda games. I still think they're plenty fun in their own rights. But playing ESO, I did pay $20 for this copy, by the way. When I started playing it, I realized that the structure, the mechanics, the everything, what they attempted to do with this is just lift it from, say, Skyrim or whatever, and then force it into an MMO aspect, which then turned into liquid shit, is the best way to describe this game. I did not like anything about it. I tried so hard, guys. I did, but it sucks.
When did you play it by chance? Because I have a Deus Ex 1 effect, where I always reinstall it and be like, maybe I'll like it now, and then I realize I don't, and I move. And for the record, before anyone calls me out, I max leveled my guy. I saw that game. I didn't just pick it up for a day. I gave it the fair shot.
I picked it up last fall.
Okay.
And I played it for a good week. Got in there and did things.
I feel like we both have the experience enough to be able to make that claim. Because I know how MMOs are with the people that are in those communities. Mm-hmm. Which is, well, really the leveling process is the tutorial. And I get that. And I don't even disagree with it. I understand where that's coming from because the full combat isn't there yet until you get to the patch content. Which makes sense. However, ESO doesn't have enough of... There's nothing complicated about it to warrant that logic, because it wants to play like Elder Scrolls.
Yeah.
It doesn't play like a traditional MMO, which is not a problem. It's not a problem. I think there's merit to that, actually. But what it tells me is that you can't use that excuse for me when it comes to admiring it. If someone just doesn't like it early on, they're never going to like it because the combat doesn't really change that much.
It doesn't. I did not care for it. I thought it was... It's got the same... How should I put this and not completely offend everyone? Because I do like Elder Scrolls games. There is a clunkiness when it comes to a Bethesda game. Mm-hmm. There is this inherent clunkiness that you expect with those games. And it was even in Fallout. And, the latest one, Fallout 4, you would think that that's going to be amazing because it's on the new consoles. But even that had this inherent form of clunkiness about it that just made everything awkward at certain points. And you're not going to escape that in ESO. Matter of fact, it's going to be right front and center. I don't want to experience clunkiness. Having
said this, I do fully believe in the merit of respecting community from any game, especially an MMO. It's something that people are really attached to, and I'm not trying to break your heart on it. What I am trying to say is, even if I'm talking in pure numbers of active players, it is not what I'm talking about when we're talking about 14 and WoW. Guild Wars 2 is a damn solid MMO, but it doesn't have the active numbers compared to these other two that are also charging monthly. It never had to go... 14 never had to go free to play because it's doing damn fine.
Right. Well, Guild Wars 2 was never free to play. I mean, it was
it's
free to begin with. You buy the game and you just play it. It never had we're going to free to play now. It was always free.
I was really referring to ESO on that.
Oh, okay. Got it.
But my point
that did absolutely do that.
My point about active players is a one-size-fits-all argument.
Mm-hmm.
But we all know the best MMOs, obviously. What's that one where you go to the moon?
Go to the moon?
Yeah.
Oh.
Alpha Space something.
No, I thought you were talking about Destiny.
Well, that's an MMO.
Because you do go to the moon in Destiny.
Yeah, but we all... I was going to make a joke, but I got... Destiny is the most popular MMO if we're counting it as MMO.
It's MMO FPS.
Well, there you go. It beats that, but I feel like it's in a different bubble than WoW and 14.
Well, yeah, they're MMORPG.
Yeah. It's a popular game. It's a real game, Destiny. It's a Blizzard game.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
I don't care if they put it on the Blizzard app.
It's called the Blizzard app. It's a Blizzard game now.
It's also funny that way back before, not Legion, but the one before that, Warlords of Draenor came out, there was this big controversy because there was... Oh, my brain stopped. There was 2 registries for new IPs, or trademark names. One was Warlords of Draenor. That was the latter that showed up. First one was The Dark Below. And it was Blizzard that registered the trademark. Everybody was going insane saying, oh, the new expansion is going to be called The Dark Below. It's going to feature the old gods. This is going to be great. And then during BlizzCon, Blizzard came out and said, here's Warlords of Draenor. We have no idea what this Dark Below is. And then, they lied entirely, and they registered it on behalf of their other half, Activision. The Dark Below was an expansion for Destiny.
I will
So Blizzard registered that trademark.
While I am excited for the new Blizzard game, Destiny 2, it's not nearly on my level as much as Final Fantasy XIV is, nor is what WoW is to you. No, it's a Blizzard game. It's made by the creators of Overwatch and Hearthstone. That's why it's on the Blizzard app. But that's fine. Blizzard can make whatever game they want to make. If they want to make the sequel to the Bungie hit Destiny, go right ahead. But my point is, I'm incredibly excited for Stormblood, which comes out. Fun fact: the early access, because we get early access for 4 days for pre-ordering it. The day after E3, I'm ready for that. No. Well, I mean, I'm as prepared as I'll ever be. But
as you're going to be, it's not going to get much better than this.
I didn't go for the fucking relic quest. I didn't go for the super ultra, you got to be cool to break down this barrier. But I am caught up in the story, and my character is prepared and ready for the fight
Okay.
that you should join me on.
Okay, I will join you and we will finish the fight. Something that never happens in Halo, by the way.
They finished the fight. They just refought.
They just fight again and again, that's all.
Well, it's a different fight. I mean, if I'm going to be fair, you're not fighting the Covenant. I don't care about Halo anymore. And I don't think any of our listeners do either.
Well, they might care when Halo 6 comes out, but until then, probably not.
No.
But you had a special something you wanted to bring up. Besides Final Fantasy.
There's other things?
Yes, there was another thing.
So, we were searching for a topic to discuss, and I thought one thing that would be an interesting topic is kind of about how video games have become this homogenized gloop of gob. There are weird traces of elements that seem to be in every game, and I want your take on why we do them. Because I don't understand why we homogenize. And this is specifically a Western game problem. These things do not show up in Japanese games, and there are some European games that don't do this either. But for some reason, we all have these tropes that nobody cares about or likes or thinks about, and we just throw them in our games. Hacking system, progression systems for games that are not RPGs. I had more examples in front of me, but now I'm on the spot and I can't think of them.
Give some examples of like the games that are guilty of this.
Okay. Let's say I take any Ubisoft game, all right? It's this open world thing that has quest markers for you to pick up random objects around a world. But then there'll be a door, and you'll have a hacking minigame that you have to do to get in that door. Is the hacking minigame fun? No. It's usually just some quick little puzzle that you got to do, but then you open the door. It just takes up your time, but the game doesn't really need the time because it's already an open world game. It's not like that filler added a big number to the length of you getting your time out of it, but we still put in the hacking systems. And I don't understand why that's there. I don't understand why we have... I don't understand why every game has to have progression. I was playing Shadow Warrior. Did you ever play the reboot of Shadow Warrior, the first-person shooter?
No.
Okay. It's kind of like a Doom clone, but like before the new Doom came out, but like, you know, to bring that spirit back. Mm-hmm. And it's a good game, but for some reason, I mean, it's just a game where you kill shit. That's all there is. But you can level up and you pick out different, I want to take 25% less damage. And in a first-person shooter that's just about blowing shit up. Nobody asked for a progression system in your Doom game. Hell, even in Doom.
Right.
We couldn't just have Doom.
Right, there was a progression system in the new Doom as well, you're right.
Why? Why do we keep putting in things that no one actually cares about into these games that just kind of homogenize them?
The only thing I can think of is to give people the feeling of more gameplay, more completion, shall I say. Because when it came to progressing with the weapons, that made sense to me. Because, upgrading weapons, that's kind of a normal thing that's been going on for a long time. But then you added in all these different things that you had, these different portals you could go in to try and earn stuff that way. And that threw me for a loop because, one, it was just odd. And two, it was fairly difficult to get these things that I thought was going to be incredibly necessary to finish the game. And yeah, it threw me off entirely.
It's just if you go from, and this year kind of opened my eyes because we've had so many good Japanese games come out. But like if I were to play, you borrowed my copy of Persona. I know you didn't get too far in it, but Persona is a focused game. It's an RPG where there are things you can do, but generally there are goals to them. You know what you're getting out of the thing. Mm-hmm. There is no, let's explore the item so I can get 1 out of 25 of these things, because if I get 25, I'll get a trophy. And then I'll unlock the trophy. And then I'll be like, yeah, I got 25 of those things because I looked on the internet for a guide to find them.
Right.
There's none of that. There's no time wasting. Every moment in Persona feels that way. Every moment in Nier, it's either story driven, exploratory, on my own terms, not because I'm looking for some specific item that I'm supposed to find. I just feel like exploring, or it's combat driven.
So
but
you're
there's
saying
no time
specifically, not to interrupt you, but you're saying specifically in terms of like, it feels like there's just filler in here for reasons undefined.
There are filler in games that we've just agreed are okay, but we never talk about them. I don't
I can agree with
if
that.
if we go back in time, I think the first example when we did talk about it was BioShock.
Mm-hmm.
Because BioShock had a hacking mini game and no one really knew why. And we made fun of it. It's like, oh, you play a little pipe mini game. But then many games copied that and did their own variation of stupid hacking thing. I know Mass Effect 2 did.
Mm-hmm.
And Mass Effect 2 is held as this classic, but is the part you're thinking of Mass Effect 2 is one of the greatest games of all time, the hacking mini game?
No. I forgot that it was even there until you said something.
No one can think of these moments. It's literally this weird filler that we accept in our games that don't add anything. There's no advantage for them being there. And I don't get why we do them. Because most of the time, most of the examples I'm thinking of are hard to come up with, even though the majority of games do them. But because they're not the memorable moment, that's not what you cling on to.
Right. Things that are just kind of there for no reason.
So that's what I think is strange about the game industry right now. And maybe that's part of the reason I have such Ubisoft fatigue, is because there are so many specific things that Ubisoft does in its open world structure that I just can't stand anymore. Like, when you played Zelda, I played a little bit of Zelda, but here's what I got from Zelda, right? It's an open world, just explore it. Just go out and do that game. There's not a bunch of markers on a map that you feel like you are obligated to hit so you fully explored the map, so that the developer says there's content in every point of this map.
Oh no. You can go fight the final boss as soon as the game starts if you want.
By not having that content, they weirdly gave you more content because you took the world as a whole rather than these series of objectives. That's part of the reason I think that game's a 10. It's a 10 because it was just a game that said, let's not waste your time. You want to explore, just do that. Just have it. This is your game.
Here's a interesting tidbit, since you brought that up, and now I'm starting to get on the same wavelength as what you're thinking here. And I'm not bringing up Peter Molyneux just to bring up Peter Molyneux like I do week in, week out. This is specific to Fable 2, and there is a point to it. Do you remember the gargoyles?
No, it's been too many years.
Nobody remembers the gargoyles. That's the point. They put these gargoyles that you were supposed to destroy in the game, gargoyle statues that yelled insults at you if you were close enough. And you were supposed to destroy, like, I can't remember if it was 50, 100, some number of these things, and you got an achievement for it. But that's exactly what you're talking about. This strange filler that's there for no reason, that if you didn't have the strategy guide, you probably wouldn't end up finding all of these damn gargoyles. Why was it thrown in? Just for the hell of it.
I think we have this idea in the West, especially, although this might be a problem with all open world games except for Zelda. But I think we have this problem where we have to justify our map size. So we make these open worlds that are these big, expansive things, but we need every single section of it to have purpose. So we make these useless... And this is not just an American problem. Final Fantasy 15 had this problem too. I really enjoyed that game, but a lot of the side quests were worthless. And a lot of them were just like, hey, I need you to fight monsters in this exact circle over here because this part of the map was made and we're not doing anything with it, so let's make this objective here so you go there. And I think that's what it is. I think developers might just be so scared of the idea that we just want to play the fucking game and not have to worry. I'm sorry I'm cursing so much today. I'll be cleaner tomorrow.
We don't censor on this, so have at it.
I know, but it seems like there's this fear that the gamer will just get so bored so quickly that we have to give them a carrot every single place. And I think that's why Zelda was such a big deal.
Oh, Zelda's
no one
great.
says it.
Not only for that reason, but also because you can do what you want with the game, and the game does what it wants with the map too. I think that's something that people don't talk about a lot. Like, you can just be walking through a certain part of the map, just minding your own business, exploring. Next thing you know, a guardian walks through and starts firing lasers at you. You didn't know it. You were just exploring. Guardian was just wandering about, saw you, start doing what it was programmed to do. And that's just some of the amazing moments when it comes to Breath of the Wild.
See, I need that game so I can play more and have that full understanding.
Yeah,
I'm also
actually
realizing
had that happen.
I am realizing that I am also hypocritical because MMOs are totally guilty of this problem.
Right, but
When
I
you play
think that's
WoW,
kind of their nature.
That is their nature. That's why it might get a pass because they're kind of built on that foundation.
Correct.
But I think other games are just stealing from that foundation and don't understand why that's needed or why it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of just letting the dynamic game have. But I think 14 gave me a little more reason to pull me with it because I viewed the side missions as leveling content, while I viewed the main mission as the main attraction. And then that kind of helped my perception. I'm like, I'll do these side stuff so I can get level enough so I can continue the real game. It's an interesting problem we're having in gaming that no one really considers a problem, but I don't think it's anywhere near end. I look at something like Days Gone from Sony, and I'm like, I bet you $1 million that's gonna follow the same traps of open world design. I've seen that game for a total of 30 seconds, and I know that game's gonna follow every single trap that I'm talking about.
Probably quite a few that are going to follow that trap.
Mm-hmm.
Now as you mention, I kind of wonder if Zero Horizon does the same thing on PS4.
I do not. I haven't played it yet. I don't have it.
Nor have I.
I'm also not interested because I look at that open world and I say, no, honey. Plus, selfishly, the plot is a little too similar to Nier, but without the depth that I'm not. Because I've had the entire story ruined for me with Horizon, and I look at it and I'm like, it's too similar, but it doesn't have any of the interesting parts. So I'm just going to look at it as a lesser Nier, which is unfortunate. And before anyone yells at me and says, "Oh, spoilers," it's not a spoiler. It's just they're both super post-apocalyptic worlds with androids and robots.
Yeah,
it's this. I mean, like at a glance, they look the same. The difference is that Nier is a super philosophy-heavy written story that deals with these super complicated themes, and the other one's Terminator. I just care more about something that makes me deeply think rather than just action set piece.
Yeah, Horizon's more like trapping and capturing robots and destroying robots and all that jazz. Not exactly.
I will play it later in Pro, but I've already heard the twist, and I'm like, I called that twist. I called that twist when I heard the main character's name. So it's not interesting enough.
But I do hope you get a chance to play more Breath of the Wild at some point, because like I was telling you there, that is the game that does, like, it's the complete antithesis of what you're talking about, which I think would make you very happy. Simply because, like I was saying, you can just be wandering somewhere, which I will give you, an actual scenario when I was playing and this happened. I was just wandering around, minding my own. It was night, so 2 skeletons of enemies came up, so I was fighting them, and realized when I looked over just a moment that there was a guardian just wandering about looking. Then he saw me and started firing, and I had to hide behind trees while fighting the skeletons and avoiding the guardian. And that wasn't because it was scripted to do this or anything like that. It's just I was exploring, the guardian was wandering, we ran into each other, and everything was completely natural.
The best open worlds are ones that are dynamic, but to have dynamic, you cannot have quest structure work the same way. That's why something like Ark, I don't even play that game, but I know you can get more stories from that. Or like Rust, or stuff like that, you know? Mm-hmm. It's just game systems working, and you're in it. And Zelda is that, but with a goal, and it has main quests, but that's not tied in with the explore.